It takes more income to buy a home right now than at any other point in recorded history. Mortgage demand has dropped to a 27-year low. And yet, millions of people are still being told the same thing. Buy a house. Stop throwing your money away on rent. Get on the property ladder before it's too late. But what if that advice is outdated? What if renting, the thing everyone told you was financial suicide, is actually the smarter move right now? Today we're going deep, we're running real numbers, exposing the hidden costs most people never talk about. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which option actually makes sense for your situation. And yes, we're going to tell you about the guy who bought a house using nothing but a red paperclip. Let's dive in. The case for buying. Let's start with why buying a home is supposed to be the greatest financial decision you'll ever make. First, there's security. When you own a home within your means, and you can comfortably make those mortgage payments, you've removed a layer of anxiety from your life. No landlord can sell the property from under you. No one can raise your rent overnight or hand you an eviction notice after 12 months. That psychological stability has real value, and it's hard to put a price on it. Second, when you own, you have total freedom over the space. Want to knock down a wall, paint the ceiling black, build a deck out back, you don't need to ask anyone's permission. And every improvement you make doesn't just make the home more livable, it builds equity that belongs to you. Third, the tax benefits are real, though they vary depending on where you live. In the United States, for example, homeowners can deduct mortgage interest and property taxes from their taxable income. In some states, there are homestead exemptions that reduce your taxable property value by tens of thousands of dollars. These aren't massive windfalls, but over a 30-year mortgage, they add up significantly. Fourth, owning gives you access to capital. If life throws something unexpected at you, a medical emergency, a job loss, a business opportunity, you can borrow against the equity in your home. It's not free money, and it does extend your repayments, but the option is there. And fifth, the big one, long-term appreciation. If you buy a home and stay in it for 20 or more years, the odds are strong that it will gain value. One home in a mid-range US city sold for $599,000 in 1995. It recently resold for $3.23 million. That's not typical, but it illustrates a ceiling of what's possible when you buy in the right place and hold long enough. There's also something that doesn't show up in any spreadsheet: community. When you own a home, you become part of a neighborhood in a way that renting rarely allows. You invest in the area, literally and emotionally. The real cost of buying. Most people look at a mortgage payment and think, that's it. That's the cost. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Let's use a concrete example. Say you're buying a $400,000 home with a 10% down payment, so you're putting $40,000 down and financing $360,000. At today's interest rates hovering around 7%, your monthly mortgage payment alone comes out to roughly $2,400 a month. But we're nowhere near done. Add private mortgage insurance, PMI, because you put less than 20% down, that's another $150 a month. Add property taxes at the US average of around 1.1% of the home's value, that's another $383 a month. Home insurance runs you about $200 a month. And then there's maintenance and repairs. Experts recommend budgeting 1 to 2% of your home's value per year for this. On a $400,000 home, that's roughly $330 a month going into a repair fund. Your total out-of-pocket cost before any adjustments, $3,463 a month. Now, to be fair, some of that comes back to you. You're building equity with every mortgage payment in year one. That's roughly $304 a month going back into your net worth. You can also deduct mortgage interest, which saves most homeowners around $24 a month in real terms after comparing against the standard deduction. That brings your effective cost down to about $2,955 a month. But here's the part nobody mentions: opportunity cost. That $40,000 down payment you just handed over if you'd invested it in an index fund, returning 6% per year, you'd be making roughly $200 a month on it. That money is now locked in your walls. Factor everything in: equity gains, tax savings, opportunity costs lost, and the true monthly cost of owning that $400,000 home is closer to $3,155 a month. Then, if you assume modest 1% annual appreciation, which has historically been roughly in line with inflation for residential property, you can credit yourself about $330 a month in home value gains. Final number, the real cost of owning a $400,000 home, all in, approximately $2,825 a month. Keep that number in mind. The case for renting. Now let's talk about renting, the option that's been dismissed for decades as throwing money away. First, let's address that phrase directly. Renting is not throwing money away. You need a place to live. Money spent on housing is money spent on survival and stability. The only genuine waste is paying for more than you need. Renting is simply a different way to access that stability, and right now it comes with some serious advantages. The obvious one is flexibility. If your job changes, your relationship changes, or you simply want to live somewhere different, you can move without losing tens of thousands of dollars in closing costs, commissions, and fees. Selling a home typically costs around 6% of the purchase price. On a $400,000 home, that's $24,000 gone before you see a single dollar of profit. Then there's simplicity. When something breaks in a rented property, it's the landlord's problem. The roof, the plumbing, the heating system, none of that is on you. And while repairs may not always happen as fast as you'd like, the trade-off is clear. No unexpected $12,000 roof replacement showing up in your bank account. Credit requirements are also much lower for renting than buying. If you're still building your financial foundation, renting keeps you housed and stable while you work toward the position where a mortgage makes sense. And here's the one that surprises most people. You can often afford to live in a better area by renting than by buying, because the rent on a comparable home is frequently lower than the all-in cost of owning that same home, especially at today's mortgage rates. To illustrate, in Las Vegas, a $400,000 home for sale sits next to a comparable rental for $2,600 a month. In Bakersfield, California, a $415,000 home for sale competes with a larger rental home going for $2,595 a month. These aren't cherry-picked outliers. Across the United States, in the vast majority of cities, renting a comparable home is significantly cheaper than buying one right now. Remember our $2,825 all-in monthly cost for a $400,000 home. In most cities, you can rent that same home for less, sometimes a lot less. The 5% rule and what the math actually says. So how do you actually compare these options side by side? In your specific city, with your specific numbers. Here's a useful framework. The total unrecoverable cost of owning a home breaks down into 3 buckets. Property taxes, roughly 1.1% of home value per year. Maintenance costs, roughly 1% per year. Cost of capital, this is where it gets interesting. The cost of capital includes 2 things: the interest you pay on your mortgage, the cost of debt, and the opportunity cost of your down payment, the returns you're giving up by not investing that money in the stock market instead. Historically, the S&P 500 has returned around 7% per year after inflation. Residential real estate has appreciated closer to 2% after inflation. That 5% gap is what your down payment is costing you in foregone investment returns every single year. Add it all up: property taxes, maintenance, the cost of debt, the opportunity cost of your down payment, and you get a number that's somewhere around 8 to 9% of the home's value per year in unrecoverable costs. To use this practically, take the home's price, multiply by 8.7%, divide by 12. That's your break-even monthly cost of ownership. If you can rent a comparable home for less than that number, renting wins, on paper. But, and this is critical, the math only tells part of the story. Humans aren't spreadsheets. A mortgage functions as forced savings for people who struggle to invest consistently. If you wouldn't take that $40,000 down payment and invest it, if it would just sit in a checking account or get spent, then the opportunity cost argument against buying weakens considerably. And time matters enormously. The average American moves every 13 years. If you're in that category and you buy a $400,000 home, hold it for 13 years with modest appreciation, and then sell. After paying off remaining loan balance and closing costs, you'd walk away with roughly $147,000 in equity. Subtract your net out-of-pocket costs over those 13 years, and your real monthly cost works out to about $1,910 a month, which is competitive with renting. The conclusion the math points to: if you stay for less than 7 to 10 years, renting is almost always cheaper. If you stay for longer than that, buying starts to pull ahead. How to make your decision. So how do you actually decide? Buy if you plan to stay in one place for at least 7 to 10 years. You have a stable income and a down payment that won't wipe out your emergency fund. You value stability, control over your space, and the long-term wealth building that comes with equity. And you're emotionally ready to own something, including the leaking pipes, the unexpected repairs, and the responsibility that comes with it. Rent. If your life is in motion, you might relocate for work, a relationship, or just because you want to. You want to keep your cash liquid and your options open. You can invest the difference between what you'd pay in rent versus ownership costs, and you'll actually do it. Or if you're simply not in a financial position where buying is responsible yet, and that's okay. Renting while you build your foundation is a completely legitimate strategy. And if neither option feels right, consider this. Carl McDonald started with a single red paperclip in 2005. Unemployed and flat broke, he decided to trade up. The paperclip became a fish-shaped pen. The pen became a doorknob. Trade by trade, over 14 exchanges and 1 full year, he ended up as the legal owner of a house in Kipling, Saskatchewan. The lesson isn't that you should try to trade your way to a house, it's that the path to ownership doesn't always look the way you expect it to. The bottom line is this: there's no universal right answer between renting and buying. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. What matters is your timeline, your finances, your life goals, and whether the numbers actually work in your city right now. Run them. Be honest with yourself. Don't let emotions push you into a mortgage you'll regret. And don't let shame push you into renting longer than makes sense. Both options can be smart. Both can be foolish. The difference is how well you understand what you're getting into. If you found this useful, consider sharing it with someone who's facing this decision right now, because odds are someone you know is. And we'll see you in the next one.